Sorry about that. Um, Let me start over. Welcome to the CHSE 6-week prep course. I have to say this first. Dr. Sellis Educate is approved as a provider of nursing continuing professional development by the North Carolina Nurses Association as an accredited approver by the American Nurses Credentialing Centers Commission on Accreditation. To receive contact hours, you are required to stay for the entire program, watch the full recording, and complete the evaluations. Okay. And if you miss a class, your recordings are in your folders. And guess what? After the 6 weeks is over, you'll still have access to everything that's in your folders and your resources. And you'll also have access to me, my services. You'll still be able to email me. Don't mind trying to jump on a Zoom just to kind of help you walk through some things if you need that extra help before you sit for your CHSE exam. But as I was saying, I do encourage you. I don't know if your schools provide the financial support for professional development, but that's where you really, really learn a lot. You do a lot of collaborating, you expand your simulation toolbox, and it's just amazing at what happens when you leave your group in your school and actually go and start fellowshipping with other simulation educators all around the world. A NASCO SSH has IMSH at the top of the year. I went my first time going to IMSH was this year down in Orlando, and it was truly amazing. So my team and I are making plans now to start saving so that we can go next year. Will you please put a URL for the folders? Okay, we can go through that. We will do that.
Yeah,
And
thank
so
you.
I strongly
Sorry for
encourage.
being needy.
No, don't say that. You're not. We're all in this together. We're all in this together. I need you guys to participate and talk back and smile and call it. We all need each other. And guess what? Every class I do, I'm still learning. If you ever become an educator where you feel you know it all, you're in a bad place. Because education is always blooming like an onion and it's always popping like popcorn. And that's my favorite thing now. Popcorn on the stove and some nice olive oil. You turn the heat up and it's everywhere. So guess what? We are always learning. So don't ever feel like you're bothering me. No, we're always learning. And I learn something new from you every time. And every cohort is different, and I learn something from every cohort. So that's what we're here together to do. Okay. All right. So that's a little bit about me. Chris, you want to share, introduce yourself, and then we'll go. Krista, you're next. Irene, and then Leroy. I'm just going in order as you are on the top of my screen. So you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I am Kristen Whedon. I have been a nurse for 21 years this year, I think. My background is primarily critical care, but I actually started as an LPN. I've done nursing almost from start to finish. If I just could go back and get that doctorate degree, I would have started from the beginning and made it all the way to the top, but we'll see. I've got two little kids. My
Oh,
son is 10 and I have a daughter who's 8, just turned 8.
oh,
So they keep me busy. And I know Irene's little fun fact was she's got a 9-month-old baby. So my kids are, I guess, not that little compared to a 9-month-old and a 3-month-old, so, or a 3-year-old and a 9-month-old. So
mm-hmm,
I do remember those days, though.
mm-hmm.
Um, I work full-time faculty. I'm an associate professor in an ADN program in Maryland at a community college. And I've been doing simulation since I was a part-time faculty member, which was like back in 2017, I think. Um, I love simulation. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
in my department has CHSE. We have a lot of CNEs,
Uh-huh.
CNECLs, but nobody is certified in simulation. I'm one of the people there that have been doing it probably the longest.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and let's see, I am working on an article um, about a simulation that one of my colleagues and I developed. It's a transition to practice simulation
Awesome.
where we focus on experiences that students don't often get. Angry
Mhm.
provider, angry family member, nurse who doesn't want to do their job. So a lot of communication, delegation, leadership skills. Um, and so that's been really cool to develop and implement. And I'm looking forward to learning a lot of stuff here. And I appreciate the recordings because I got to go back and watch everybody and listen to your first week stuff. So I'll be here. And
Awesome,
sometimes
awesome,
with
awesome.
my crazy dogs barking in the background, but I'll try to keep them calm.
That's okay. They are welcome as well. Sit them down. They're probably part of some of your simulation scenarios in some sense. We have our families. Guess what? The sim I did today was in the leadership course. And we always can go on the fly when students do certain things, right? And so there was an angry significant other coming in to see her family member, and they had COVID, and no one said anything to her. So she just started acting out. So I wanted to come into the sim and be the security guard. She almost knocked me down. I'm like, I better be careful. But she was all over the place. It seemed like when I went to her, she just got worse. So it's just really exciting just to see. I love simulation. I'm the same because you could just do so much. Again, it's like that popcorn. It just pops all over the place. So welcome, welcome, congratulations on your scholarship, your writing. Hopefully, we can hear some more about that over the next 5 weeks to see how you're moving forward. And so you're gonna probably be getting an email from me, just kind of being accountability. Have you published yet? What are you doing? What are you doing? And whenever you publish, you're gonna have to let everyone on here know now so we can check it out. Okay, we're gonna be your cheerleaders. Krista.
Yes, hello. So my name is Krista. I am a professor with a ADN program in the Napa Valley. And so I'm doing that full time, and then I'm per diem at the hospital that's right down the street. So keeping my skills up. I've been doing sim for, I think, 3 years now. We kind of revamped the program, so getting it off the ground, and now it's time to really dive into making sure that all of the staff is, pulling their weight as well, and giving the students what they are here for, an experience that is adequate and appropriate in the whole 9 yards. So I'm actually the first one to go for my CHSE certification. There's a couple more that are planning on doing it next year, but I'm paving the way. So
That's right.
yeah, so that's a little bit about me, I guess.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I was the first as well. I was one man bandit too, a one man team. So
There's two of us.
there's two. So, oh yeah. So, yes, yes, yes. Oh, I'm excited. Excited, excited, excited. Irene.
Hi again. I'm Irene. I'm a clinical assistant professor at ASU. So I teach in the pre-licensure undergrad program. My background is in critical care, specifically in neuro ICU. So I have a lot of background in that. But when I teach here, I coordinate a course for OB and labor and delivery. So it's different, but I've been learning, I've been reading, I've been doing that. So it's been a lot of fun. It actually helped me, and actually I think saved my daughter when I was pregnant. But I won't go into that. Um,
Okay.
yeah, so but it's been fun. We do a lot of simulation. The class that I coordinate, we do 2 high fidelity sims every 3 days, on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And we just got a new mannequin that actually gives birth. So that's been
Mm-hmm.
fun. We have one, a pediatric mannequin, where his lips turn blue and red depending on the symptoms and issue. So it's been a lot of fun. Um, but yeah, that's my background. I do have 2 kids, a 9-month-old and a 3-year-old. They are busy. I did just actually enroll my 3-year-old to preschool in a Montessori school here. So he starts on the 20th. I'm excited, but also kind of sad
Mm-hmm.
at the same time. They grow so
Mm-hmm.
fast, so quick. So
Yes. Goes by really quick. My firstborn was over here just a few minutes ago, and he's 28. And he just leaned over, put his eye, said, "Oh my gosh, it's still so beautiful." He's a grown man, but it still feel good to have him lean on mommy
yeah.
every now and then. What's the vendor for your maternity simulator? Who's the vendor? Do you know?
To be honest, I'm not sure. The director knows. I just saw it. She just gave us a brief rundown, but
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know the vendor. I can get that
Okay.
information though.
What's her
Um,
name? is it
the
Victoria?
director?
The simulator.
Jessica Gentis.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. I don't know if you know her. She got her CHSE. I think she was like one of the first ones to get it here.
No, your simulator. You said you just got a new maternity, your birthing
Oh,
simulator.
yeah. Yeah,
What's
so
the
I don't
name of
know
it?
much about it. They do that more
Okay.
in like term 8, like in the graduate program.
Oh,
So
okay.
that
Okay.
was when we got it.
We have Victoria, and every time I deliver a baby, I'm in there as if though it's just happening for the
Yeah.
first time. To hold myself back. Have to hold myself back.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Mr. Leroy, introduce yourself. How are you doing tonight, sir?
Pretty good. My name's Leroy Markland. I teach undergraduate here at Texas A&M University, College Station. And I've been teaching for 7 years. Retired Army, had 30 years in the service. We have two boys, but they're older. They're 20, 28, 28 and 29 years old. And they both graduated from A&M. And of course, Happy has me, so I'm the third kid in the family. Happy's my wife, so I'm the third baby. um, I've had experience with simulation in the military, and then I came to A&M and did simulation, but not. I never really got a formal uh, training or education. Like just sit down here and watch the students, So that's kind of how it's been. So hopefully, getting this CHSE is going to help me a lot to be a better um, educator. That's my goal here.
Awesome.
I'm missing the Kentucky. We're playing Kentucky tonight, women's basketball or volleyball. So it's we're both in the top 10, both teams.
Okay.
And then the Gators, Florida Gators, are coming to town Saturday. So big game too.
All right. Awesome.
SEC all the way.
Awesome. 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 Thank you, thank you, thank you. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, for welcoming Kristen to our group. We'll go ahead and move to our dictionary. And you, like I said, you do have that inside of your folder, but we'll go real quick through our terms. I'm going to start at the top looking at actor. Can everyone see? Do I need to, let's see, make the screen a little larger? Are you good? Let's see if I can do it on my end because it looks a little. Is it a little larger for you? It's okay.
It's good on my end.
Okay, okay, good. Okay, so actor will be our first one. Overseer, guardian. Let's see. Let's go to the definition up here. Typically an entity. Let me get my little dictionary here. An agent within the simulated environment that performs the actions, interact with other entities in healthcare simulation, which we do a lot of professional, amateur people trained to reproduce the components of real clinical experience. It's also a term that describes a simulated patient or a participant or a SP or a standardized patient. Okay. And we will talk a little bit more about that when we get to our SP section of our book. But actor. Our next term is adaptive learning. Adaptive learning is incorporated in a wide range of technologies and techniques that observe participants and adjust the learning experience on demand to meet the unique needs of participants and facilitate the individual/team members in the meeting. Our next term for tonight is advocacy inquiry. Whoop, whoop. One of our debriefing techniques, and we'll dive into that a little bit more when we get into debriefing. But it's a method of debriefing in which an observer states what was observed or performed in a simulation activity, that's the advocacy part, or shares critical or appreciative insights about it explicitly, that's advocacy, and then asks the learners for an explanation of their thoughts or actions. That's the inquiry part. And we will talk a little bit more about that. And I have some nice little resources to help you with your debriefing techniques. Alpha and beta testing, doing a lot of that now with VR clinicals and VR emerging technologies. You see a lot of alpha and beta testing opportunities as new modalities and new pedagogies arrive and flourish. You'll see a whole lot of alpha and beta testing going. Early testing of a product is your alpha. Once that product has been produced, we'll have some beta testing, early testing of a software program, simulation or game by potential users who may not be the exact target group. The purpose of beta testing is identical to alpha testing and includes evaluation of the design. So your alpha is early testing of the product, including the simulation by the programmers, but not the potential users. But when you get the beta testing, you do pull your users in on that testing. We were able to participate in some alpha and beta testing when it with some virtual clinical with MetaQuest headsets. So that was a pretty cool experience to be a part of that, and also to see your feedback come alive as they make changes to their programs moving forward. Anchoring error simulation relevance includes the need to integrate recognition and correction of anchoring errors and bias errors into the simulation activity. Anchoring errors include anchoring bias, confirmation bias, and cognitive bias. Refers to excessive weighting of initial information and ability to adjust to the initial diagnostic hypotheses. Next term is artificial intelligence, AI. I bet you nobody has heard that term. We're hearing it everywhere. AI. It's a machine-based system that can, for a given set of human-defined objectives, make predictions, recommendations, or decisions influencing real or virtual environments. Assessment, our next term of the evening. A systematic method of obtaining information from tests and or sources used to draw emphasis about characteristics of people, objects, or programs. And we'll look at some of that assessment, formative, summative, as we move forward in our study sessions. Assessments. Assessor is, assessor is the person who performs the assessments. And when we get into our OSCEs, our summative evaluations, especially our OSCEs, we want to make sure that those that are doing those assessments have been trained and our tools are reliable and valid. So we'll talk a little bit more about assessment. It can be an assessment with our checklist as we're doing our psychomotor skills, our validations, all the way up to our OSCEs. A person who performs assessments of individuals according to a pre-established criterion or material such as a checklist. In healthcare simulation, this can refer to a variety of people. It can be your facilitator, instructor, clinician, or your simulated patient. Okay, augmented reality. You haven't heard that word, I'm sure, but that's moving a lot into our simulation and all around us. It's a type of virtual reality in which synthetic stimuli are registered with and superimposed on real-world objects, often used to be to make information that is otherwise imperceptible to human senses perceptible. That is something to look at, I tell you. It really, really is. Our next term is avatar. It'll be our last term of the evening. Avatar is a virtual object used to represent a physical object, a human in a virtual world. Controlled avatars may be either first person, perspective, or third person perspective in virtual simulations. Okay. The third person perspective places the view in camera so that the user and the learner can see the control avatar or the player. When you're looking at the first person perspective, it places the camera such that the user and the learner view the world through the eyes of the avatar. Okay. Those are our terms for tonight. And I encourage you again to just go back and look at your folder and actually go back over some of the terms and just make sure, especially terms that you're not familiar with, make sure you spend some time there. Okay. Session 2. Tonight we're looking at professional values and capabilities. This section on our CHSE exam is worth 20%. Okay, 20%. And our highlighted chapters in this section, chapter 4 be leadership in simulation, chapter 5 special learning considerations in simulation, chapter 6 is our IP sims, and chapter 7 is ethical, legal, and regulatory implications in healthcare simulation. So the charge was for everyone to go ahead and complete their exams, their quizzes. And again, I encourage you, even if you don't, I still want you to show up, okay? Because we are still going to all learn together. So we'll go ahead and start chapter 4. Chapter 4 is in our book, page 41. So what we'll do is, as we did last week, I will read the question, and I may engage you some on tonight, but I'm gonna go ahead and read the question so that we can pick up a little speed, because I do want to be true to our 2 15-minute breaks on tonight. Okay, so I'll go ahead and read. And then once I read the answer, you can put once I read the question, you can put your answer in the chat box, okay? And then we'll go with rationales as well. I do have a nice document I can't wait to share. It's almost like Christmas time and you know what's under the tree, or you're giving somebody a gift and you know what it is and it's really good and you can't hold it. I've been trying to hold it, but we talked about Brenner's last session. So I really have a nice simplified document that I want to share with you briefly, because in this section here, you'll hear something about Brenner's. But a nice little document here that simplified the Brenner's framework. And what I'm going to do is put this in your folder and you'll have access to it. And I may even send you an email later tonight and attach it to an email as well. But this is something that we created. And if you look at it, we talked a little bit about Brenner's framework, novice to expert. It has the different levels, and what I wanted to do was actually show you what it looks like for a student and also as the simulation educator. Because as we go through our questions and through our book, you're going to see there's some of the questions are targeted towards our learners, right? And some of the questions are targeted towards the simulation educator. And what level, where are they on the novice to expert spectrum? So this chart will have students, and then it's going to give an example of what that looks like in simulation. For the first stage, novice, students little to no clinical or simulation experience. They follow steps. They are step driven, and they focus on the task. One example would be the basic vital sign assessment using a low fidelity mannequin. They're going step by step, and they need that guidance. When you're looking at a novice simulation educator, they're new to simulation. They rely heavily on scripts and checklists, and they typically go straight by the script, unsure of how to debrief. Because, debriefing requires skill, it requires practice, right? It requires training. And so the example of an educator who's a novice educator, they read from a script doing a CPR scenario, uses a debriefing checklist. Okay. And then you could go on and on and on, but I was so excited about this. I just had to spill it a little bit, but I will put this in your resource. I'll also attach it to an email so that you'll have access to it, but go through this, and I may reference it a little bit tonight because some of your questions in chapter 4 is going to come from this sheet here. So I may just leave it up in case we have to come back to it. How about that? So let's go ahead to on page 41. The first question says, leadership in simulation includes which of the following attributes? A, simulation knowledge. B, laboratory setup skills. C, succession planning. D, national recognition. if you'll put your answer in the chat. Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. And our answer tonight is C, succession planning. Would someone like to share why did you choose C? Why did you choose C? And what in your question led you to choose C? And then we'll read the rationale the book has shared with us. Someone unmute your mic if your mics are not already.
For
Why
me,
was C your choice?
I took C just because as a leader, you need to have who's coming up behind you. So that was what cued me in with succession, was the leadership part of it.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And you are correct. Because when you look at A, simulation knowledge, B, laboratory setup skills, D, national recognition. No, the attribute of a leader, and you are correct. Leadership would draw us to that succession planning. Laboratory setup skills, you can have your sim lab techs help with that, right? You can have others on your team. And when you're thinking leadership, you're thinking about the directorship of that program or that sim lab. And you need, just like Krista said, have someone in that succession planning. Leaders make short and long-term goals and are passionate about the organization continue regardless of whether they are the appointed leader. Setting up laboratory skills stations is a managerial task, right? Simulation knowledge may be an attribute of many healthcare educators, and some may not display leadership qualities. National recognition may be for simulation research, scholarship, or service besides leadership. Okay. Number 2, a leader's moral obligation to simulation learning includes A, developing scenarios, B, debriefing learners, C, understanding simulation terms, or D, disseminating novel ideas. Yes, our answer is D, disseminate novel ideas. A leader's moral obligation. We got to get it out there. Like Kristen, you're doing some good things in your centers. You're educating your learners. Your learners are teaching us some things. We're getting data. So our obligation is simulation educators, and we're getting certified. We need to move that knowledge out. We need to push it out so that we can continue to cause others to evolve to those proficient expert simulation educators. So we need to be able to disseminate that knowledge out. That's our obligation. Developing scenarios, debriefing learners, understanding the simulation terms. Those things are all good. But when you look at your best choice, and that's another thing I want to put out. Now, you may have a lot of answer choices that say, oh, that looks good. That sounds good. Yeah, that could be. But they're looking for what? The best one. The best one. The one that stands out from all your other choices. Okay? Simulation leaders have the moral obligation to share new and novel ideas so other simulation educators can learn and benefit from it. Developing scenarios may only affect the people who use them. Just developing a scenario is fine, but if you share it, like Kristen, she's sharing some scenarios that they have developed. Debriefing learners does not take leadership per se, but a trained debriefer. Understanding simulation terminology is the responsibility of everyone who works in the simulation lab. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Number 3, a new simulation educator has been orienting with a mentor. The new educator requests to add some detail to the scenario being developed for the advanced practice nurse learners. The new simulation educators demonstrate that they are at which stage of Benner's development? Which stage of Benner's development? See, competent, yes. Yes, 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 yes. The competent level. So, okay, I have everybody putting competent. So I want you to tell me what in that question. What were your cues in the question? That help you choose competent. You are correct. I know y'all didn't get.
Adding information or material. So.
Yes, adding information, adding some detail. And what else? Anything else in the center in that question? You were able to add detail. Do you think this was an advanced simulation? Who's doing it for some? Go ahead, Irene.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, because I was gonna say it's for an advanced practice nurse. So like it would be, it's not for an undergrad or like new nurses or anything. So it must be
Right.
a complex scenario.
Exactly. That's another good one. Right. It was for exactly. It's for, it would be a complex scenario. Exactly. Yes, yes, yes. And your new simulation educator would do more basic scenarios, right? Yes, yes, yes. So the answer is competent. Is the stage. Competence is the stage at which the person can assist by adding information to a situation. Novice educators are limited in their capacity to change things and may be somewhat inflexible. Why are they inflexible? Because they have to go step by step. Nothing can go array. It has to stay in order because a novice educator would really have a hard time kind of reel that simulation back in if anything goes outside of what they have on their checklist. Advanced beginners can recognize parts of the situation. Proficient practitioners can see a big picture and are confident to change plans if needed, not just add to them. And if you look on our little chart here, so happy to see it. In the competent number 3, manage tech more independently, starts prioritizing, gaining confidence, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. All right. Great, great, great. Number 4, the expert simulation educator needs more understanding of their mentorship role during orientation when they ask the new simulation educator to A, observe several simulations, B, create a scenario, C, demonstrate debriefing, D, use an existing scenario. Correct. B. B is our correct answer. Someone tell me what in your question were your cues. Exactly. What were your cues in your question? What was in that question that caused you to choose B?
Creating a scenario takes a lot of understanding of several different components, where the learners are, and all the things, right? So you need pretty significant experience to do that. And this was somebody who was mentoring someone in an orientation phase. So to me, they're not experienced at all.
Exactly. 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 So we need some help. That expert simulation needs more under the one that's the expert simulation educator need a little bit more understanding to ask a novice simulation educator to create a scenario. It requires experience, as Kristen said. Creating a scenario should not be part of a new simulation educator's role during orientation. Scenario development should come later. Novice simulation educators should be what? Observing the simulations, right? Observing, not creating. And demonstrating debriefing before implementing simulations or debriefing themselves. Using an existing scenario may be more of an obtainable learning session than creating a scenario from scratch. Creating a scenario takes experience. Number 5, at which Brenner's developmental stage should the simulation educator mentor consider the new simulation educator independent? A, novice, B, advanced beginner, C, competent, D, proficient. Correct. Our answer is D. Our answer is D. You are correct. You are correct. And what in your question led you to choose proficient over novice, advanced beginner, and competent? What characteristic?
They're independent.
Yeah, they're independent. They're independent. Okay. Awesome. Number 6, an important concept in simulation learning is to understand that the simulation educator should A, coach the students as they move along in the scenario, B, provide details about treatments during the scenario, C, stop the scenario if it is not meeting the learning objectives, or D, allow the students to critically think and make decisions. Correct. Our answer is D. Our answer is D. Allow those students to critically think and make decisions. We want to make sure we create a what? Psychological safe environment in our pre-briefing when we first get up to start talking to our students. Create and set a psychological safe environment so our students feel safe to what? Ask questions. If they don't know and they make a mistake, they're able to make that mistake in a safe learning environment. And then we can help them in the debriefing to connect those dots, to change that unsafe behavior. So when they go back to clinical or wherever they're going to practice, they're able to practice safely, right? Provide safe care. Help them to think, not we think for them, but we provide the atmosphere to help them think. Critical thinking. Simulation learning is hands-on learning in which students are encouraged to make decisions and think about possible solutions to patient issues. Coaching during the simulation scenario may be necessary at times. Providing details should not be necessary during a scenario because it should be completed during the pre-briefing. During the pre-briefing. Stopping the scenario should only be at last attempt at getting students back on track. And we have to be very careful how we stop those scenarios if we can't recover, right? If it's unsafe and someone in the room is going to be impacted about it, we will. But you try to do all you can to recover if you can still meet the learning objectives of that simulation. So D is our correct answer. 7, an effective method for advocate for simulation would be A, appointing simulation educators, B, designating shared space with other learning activities, C, recruiting interested faculty, or D, reusing equipment to decrease costs. C is your correct answer. Correct. Recruiting interested faculty. What word in that question led us to C?
I was thinking the word advocating.
That's correct. Advocacy. Exactly. Advocacy. And we talked a little bit about that last week. Faculty that are interested are more likely to demonstrate enthusiasm for simulation. Appointing faculty may not produce advocacy for sim education if the faculty are not passionate about simulation. Designing shared space with other learning activities may not keep the simulation equipment safe. And reusing equipment may not produce good results if it's outdated or in poor repair. Okay. Number 8, a novice simulation educator. A novice simulation educator needs a better understanding of the benefits of simulation learning when they say, I should use simulation for A, common assessments that students do every day in indirect patient care experiences. B, hard to acquire patient scenarios that meet the student learning outcomes. C, assisting students in understanding a team collaborative approach to patient care. Or D, providing experiences in caring for diverse patients that may not be encountered in direct patient care experiences. Correct. Yes, our answer is A, and we touched on that last week. The purpose for simulation. That novice simulation educator needs better understanding if they're saying they're using them for common assessments that the students do every day in direct patient care. We want to do our simulations to provide those opportunities, those hard to find opportunities that they don't have in clinical. Provide them that exposure. Let's see, a better use of simulation is to expose students to team activity, team steps, I need you to go back to your team steps. We'll talk some more about that later on. If you are not familiar with team steps, I encourage you to start reviewing some things on team steps. I have some resources for you in that as well. Hard to acquire patient care experiences and diversity not encountered in direct patient care experiences. Common assessments and competencies that the students do not do often in direct patient care usually do not need additional practice in the simulation lab. Okay. Number 9, a method a simulation educator can use to promote student engagement is to A, use high-tech equipment, B, review pathophysiology, C, review the student learning outcomes, D, provide a complex scenario. Correct. Our answer is C. Review the student learning outcomes, get some buy-in, and that also moves them beyond. We have a nice psychological safe environment. Reviewing those outcomes causes them to get engaged and shows their readiness for learning, prepares them as well. Let's see, meeting the student learning outcomes will assist in providing a learning environment or an experience that is at what? Age appropriate, level appropriate, simulation, appropriate level of the learners, and using the appropriate content. This will provide students with the best method of engagement because they will make the connections between the learning experience and the learned didactic. We don't want to provide simulations that they haven't had exposure to, because you remember you want to keep that environment safe, right? We want them to learn. We want them to know the answers. We want them to have the content in their classroom in the didactic space so that when they come to our sim labs, they're able to bridge that gap to practice and implementation. The best method of engagement because they will make the connections between learning experience and the learned didactic content. Using high-tech technology, guess what? Does not guarantee results and should be used for scenarios that call for technology. Reviewing patho is a good idea, but may not stimulate student engagement. Providing complex scenarios is a good engagement process if the students, and only if the students are at a higher level in their education process. There's no need to use a high fidelity simulation if you're doing a simulation that has a lot of skills attached to it. And you can do it with a task trainer, or you can do a hybrid. Or you can use an SP. So making sure that we're making good use of our resources and choosing the right modality based on the level of the learners. And it's always going back to your learning outcomes. What are the learning outcomes? Everything circles right back around to your learning outcomes. Number 10, a simulation educator is observing the development of a scenario. The simulation educator is most likely in which stage of development? Novice, advanced beginner, competent, or proficient? A is correct. And what was our buzzword? What was the Q word in our question?
Observing.
Yeah,
Observing. Yes, yes, yes. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Any questions from chapter 4? You did very, very well. Put your grade up at the top of your quiz, okay? Put it up at the top. What was your grade? We had 10 questions, 10 points each. Okay. Put that at the top of your page. We're going to move right on into quiz 5. Okay. You okay? Everybody good? Are we good to move forward with 10 more and then we'll take a break? Okay. Everybody good? All right. Chapter 5. We are on page 60. Learning styles. Kolb's learning style. Number 1, the simulation educator observes a student crying after the death of a cardiac patient portrayed by a mannequin in the scenario. The simulation educator understands that this can happen because simulation is a An unfair social practice. B, intense learning experience. C, an emotionally charged situation. D, a situation involving students with unpredictable personality types. C. C is the correct answer. Emotionally charged simulation. Emotionally charged simulation. An emotionally charged simulation situation may occur if the learner relates a scenario to a situation that is what occurred in their life or that of a friend or family member. The scenario does not depict unfair social practices, so this should not be the trigger for the student. Intense learning experiences are usually complex with many things going on at once. And higher level students should have the resiliency to react in these situations. Unpredictable personality types do not necessarily mean that a student will become emotionally upset. 2, simulation learning activities can lend themselves to a better understanding of human diversity because A, they are faculty who can adjust scenarios. B, many laboratories have diverse mannequins. C, it is a reflective learning environment. D, diversity can be discussed during a scenario. C is correct. Can someone share why did you choose C as your answer? Why did we choose C before we look at the rationale in our book? Why was C your choice? Or why was A, B, and D not the right choice?
I was actually torn between C and D.
Okay.
Ended up going with C just because of the word environment. But I was looking at D because I'm thinking of, you know, I was just trying to how we deal with diversity. And I know that there's like those diversity education opportunities. So I was kind of torn between the two of them.
Okay. Okay. And when you think about the two, and I can see how, and what separates your answer from the wrong answer is when we talk about simulation being what type of experience? A reflective learning experience. Because simulation is a time where students are what, especially in debriefing, we cause them to reflect on their actions, right? So that's where that in your choice makes that one stand out. A reflective learning experience, a reflective learning environment. Because that's what we do in simulation. We don't tell the students that all the answers, but we ask them the Socratic questions that will cause them to reflect on their behavior, right? And as they reflect on that behavior, we come together and talk about it. And that's when learning actually takes place, which that's what adds the diversity, because you get to hear different perspectives from all of your learners. Thank you. Learning is to reflect is a primary simulation experience, and reflection leads to understanding. Unconscious biases and tolerance and appreciation for diversity, inclusion, and equity. Diverse mannequins assist and recognize diversity, as do discussions about diversity. Faculty can adjust the scenario to include diversity, but understanding is really a product of what? Reflection. That's why it's reflective learning. Reflective learning. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Now we're going to look at our VARC. A visual, read, audio, and kinesthetic learner. Student learning styles are important to understand so that educational methodologies can reflect student preferences. Simulation educators should be aware that preparing the night before the simulation scenario is most likely best suited to learners who prefer which learning style. Yes, our answer is B. Our answer is B. What made you choose that answer? Why was B correct and A, C, and D incorrect? What inside of your question?
I just think of a night owl reading.
A night owl reading, okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
when I was thinking if they need a prep, then they're gonna be reading on something. They're not where the simulation is, where they can't see, feel, hear anything. It's more of reading and writing things beforehand.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Reading and writing, prepping and preparing the night before the sim. Exactly. Reading and writing. And let's look at learners who primarily use the read write method of learning or mode of learning would benefit from having the opportunity and the time they want to read ahead of time. They want to get that knowledge ahead of time. Over the scenario the night before, your visual, audio, and kinesthetic learners are more suited to learn during your pre-briefing time. That's when they get most of their learning. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Number 4, simulation educators facilitating learning about a procedure, and one of the learners have difficulty following the steps. The learner may be displaying characteristics of which learner, which learning type. A, tactile, B, intuitive, C, global, D, reflective. Correct. Talk to me about your global learner. And that's one thing I want you to put a little star beside. Make sure we know the different types of learning styles. Okay, you have a scenario and you have to choose. On your CHSE, you'll know what type of activities to choose and what types of activities you could put inside of your
I
scenario.
put
So put a
reflective
little
because
asterisk.
I'm sorry. I put reflective because difficulty following steps is they wouldn't have time to think of what they did till after they're done.
Okay. So it says the simulation educator is facilitating learning about a procedure, and one of the learners has difficulty following the steps. So this type of learner doesn't do well with having steps. So the answer is C, they're global. That's a global learner. Your reflective learner can review and think about the information later. But this is steps, following steps. So the learner that is having difficulty following steps in your choices would be your global learner versus your reflective learner. Now the reflective learner probably have a scenario and then they have to go back and reflect on what they think happened or how that scenario impact them. Now if that was in your question, then your answer would be reflective.
Okay.
If they
All
had to
right.
review and then provide their feelings about it or how, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Now I see the answer, the correct answer. Okay.
Okay, okay. Global learners many times want to see what? The big picture before the details. Therefore, they may have challenges with procedures that include steps. Global being broad, global, around the globe. Tactile, intuitive, and reflective learners may be more in tune to your procedural steps in a process. Many situation, number 5, simulation educators are baby boomers or Generation Xers, while learners are millennials or Generation Z. One of the learning strategies that millennials and Generation Z respond positively to is A, modular learning, B, lecture before scenario, C, problem solving, D, group activities. Yes, correct. Correct. C is our answer. C is our answer again on our CHSE, a case study or an example. You're getting ready to start create a scenario. What type of activities you're getting ready to do your pre-briefing? What type of activities would you use? You would have to know millennials, not that they would write out millennial, but give you a brief description. You would make sure you have to pick those choices in your answers that will align up to the appropriate type of activities that will provide them the best opportunity to learn. So the answer is problem solving. Millennials and Gen X, problem solving. That's one thing they both have in common. Millennials like teamwork and group activities. Your modular learner and lectures are more likely akin to the baby boomers and your Gen Xers. Okay. 6, again, you won't see per se theory names, but you will see case studies, scenarios on your exam that you need to understand, not per se the name, which the name is great, but what does that theory look like when it's implemented in simulation activities or simulation scenarios? Okay. So Grasha's teaching style describes simulation educators who have different approaches. The best approach an educator can have with a group of learners in a simulation scenario, expert, formal, demonstrator, or delegator. Our answer is demonstrator, C. The best approach. Coach, encourage, not needed at the time, but is the best of all your choices that you have lined up. This is one of those questions where the best answer, we'd have to choose for the best. So at the demonstrator, when you look at his learning style, that was one of the things that stood out. Demonstrators are usually your coach demonstrate, encourage active learning, which is congruent with simulation learning. The experts, formal, and delegators do not encourage students active learning directly. Okay. Let's see. 7, the simulation educator provides students with the topic of simulation for the following day and asks them to research the patient's care. Now, this is according to Quirks. Which teaching style is this? Assertive, suggestive, collaborative, or facilitative? Correct. The answer is B. Again, not per se looking at the style itself and who wrote it, the author of it, but it's what that style looks like in play. If you had to choose a style, if you had to choose an activity when you read the case study, that's the type of question and answering that we would need to do for our CHSE. Suggestive, students to look up information. And that's the type of style we need to be cognizant of when we're preparing our pre-briefing work for our students, the pre-work for our students. Knowing the learning style of that cohort that you're going to be performing that simulation with is very critical for the preparation for your simulation, your pre-work stage, and even the simulation as a whole, but you think about it a lot with your pre-work. Suggestive educator use experiences to describe a concept and then request that the learners seek more information on the subject. Assertive educators do not use facilitation. Collaborative and facilitative educators use problem solving and reflective learning as opposed to enhanced student ownership of learning by suggestion they participate in information finding. So knowing your student learning styles is very critical as we prepare them for the simulation experience itself. Number 8, the novice simulation educators reviewing the characteristics of teaching effectives outlined by Kelly and needs further review when they state that blank is included as a trait of an effective teacher: feedback, communication, knowledge, or sensitivity. Correct. Our answer is D. That's not even part of his tenets. That's not one of the tenets, sensitivity, but feedback, communication, and knowledge is. It's not an attribute of Kelly's research demonstrates that the 3 main attributes needed for effective teaching are feedback, communication, and knowledge of the content. 9, social determinants that may place a student at risk include lack of friends, family members, lack of diverse faculty, or peer support. Correct. Our answer is C, lack of diversity. Okay, those things can be social determinants to a student at risk. Lack of diverse faculty is challenged for diverse at risk learners. Okay, peer support, friends, and family support may be factors, but the lack of diverse faculty has been a well documented deterrent in at risk student success. Again, when we're actually creating our scenarios, when we're choosing those that will walk alongside us, and even in our pre-working, our planning phases, understanding these tenets are very, very important. Lifesavers, some of my favorite 10. Lifesavers are sometimes needed in a scenario to provoke positive learning and to A, decrease emotions, B, understand health and illness concepts, C, reach learning outcomes, D, develop a care plan for the patient. Yes, 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 yes. Lifesavers. I love it. I love it. The correct answer is C. They help the students reach their learning outcome. And those lifesavers can come from you as the facilitator. It can come from the patient through the voice. It can come from your SP. And it can even come from someone else coming into the room. Those lifesavers, it's just like what a lifesaver does when someone's drowning. You throw that lifesaver out there to save them. So say that student is in that simulation and you see that they're stuck. They can't even move towards achieving that learning outcome. Either you, through the voice of the patient, you can start coughing and say, I can't breathe if they have not done their what? Assessment of the lung. Or if they don't notice that the O2 sat has dropped. That O2 sat is no longer 98%. Now it's down to 88. But the students are so task oriented, they didn't pay attention. So as the facilitator or the patient, you can cause that patient to start coughing. Or you can cause that patient to say, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Those are lifesavers. And you're hoping that the students will catch on. And guess what? Circle back around, do their respiratory assessment, while also checking their O2 sat to realize, this patient is in trouble. The patient needs some assistance. Those are what we call lifesavers. We throw those out there to try to help bring those students back so that they can reach their learning outcomes. Okay. And you realize sometimes those students are stuck. If they can't come in with the lifesaver, you as the facilitator may need to call a what? A timeout. A timeout, or the students themselves may call a timeout. So then they can reset. You can start asking some other little Socratic questions. Primary nurse, can you please give me a report on what you have assessed at this point? Let us know what's happening with your patient. Have them have a nice little soft reset, because you remember the goal is you want to keep that environment safe and you want those students to successfully get to the end of the sim by achieving those learning outcomes. So your lifesavers are very critical in keeping that environment safe. Okay? And lifesavers can come from any of those areas I've just talked about. Okay? I think we've had enough. We've done 20 questions. Y'all ready for a break? This is our time. We're going to go ahead and take a 10-minute break. Any questions or conversation about what we've talked about so far? All right. So we'll go now and take a 10-minute break. We'll be back at 7:18. I encourage you to step away. You will cut your camera off. And at 7:18, we'll cut our camera back on and we'll start right back with our next set of questions. Okay? Thank you. Okay. That time went by pretty quick. Hope everybody had a nice break. And made it back. We're going to go ahead and get started. We are now in IP, Interprofessional Simulations, Chapter 6. When I think about our IP Sims as related to your CHSE, again, they're not looking a whole lot at what we know by knowledge, just knowledge questions. What is this definition, et cetera? They're looking from implementation application. How do you see team step rolled out in a simulation? What are those barriers to bringing a team together? How will we effectively run a interprofessional collaborative simulation? How do you get everybody on the same team? How do we get everybody moving forward? So it's those type case study like questions that we will see that we'll have to think about, not necessarily memorizing what each tenet of the team step is or the IP interprofessional simulation grid, but understanding what it looks like when we're bringing it together as the simulation educator that's facilitating bringing all of our different disciplines to the table. So let's look at our first one on page 81, which is a good example. The simulation educator is charged with designing an IP SIM, an interprofessional education course with medical students, nurses, and pharmacists. Despite reaching out to colleagues, they have been unable to develop a team. The next step, and you notice they say best, the next best step would be what? A, move forward alone and design scenarios that have a team caring for a patient. B, abandon the project and stick to domain-specific learning. C, locate IPE case already designed and implement the program without support from the other disciplines. Or D, reach out to the leadership of each discipline to discuss the needed resources and team members and understand their interests. What's your best answer? Good. Everybody said D. So tell me, why did you choose D? Why is D the correct answer in your mind when you're thinking about IP Sims or IP courses?
The other
Well,
three answers don't. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
without people, you don't have a team. It's an I. There's no I in team, I guess. So.
Right. That's exactly right.
Sorry, Christine.
Okay, Kristen, what were you going to say? That's right, Leroy. You're right.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar, that the other three answers are lacking the intraprofessional part. So
Right.
and
you wouldn't reach interprofessional goals, right? If you just moved on, you wouldn't reach the goals of an interprofessional collaboration, right? And design a sim, just caring for a patient. You still need input from what? Everyone that's a part of those different disciplines. You need to bring them around the table. And you're not just going to go get one either that was created and, implement that, because you still won't meet the needs of everybody on that team. And everybody, when you're looking at your learning outcomes, when you're creating an IPE sim, you need to make sure that those at the table in the planning session are contributing to the learning outcomes. You don't want nursing to create learning outcomes for PT. You don't want your nursing to create learning outcomes for your dietetics. There need to be a representative around the table in that planning phase, when you're going around and actually creating your learning objectives, so that everybody's learning objectives in your IP Sims are what? Specific to the discipline involved. Okay, great. So reach out to the leadership. Tackling the barrier of needed resources needs leadership support to increase the chance of success. Not partnering with leadership and other professions will not result in an optimal IP SIM. Moving forward alone will not ensure IPE or use an existing scenario if there is no buy-in. Abandoning a project is not an option because communication in the practice area needs to be interprofessional to decrease patient care mistakes. Number 2, the simulation educator over here is a participant of interprofessional education experience, raising their voice loudly and stating an order to someone in a different discipline without addressing this person by name. The simulation educator would best handle this situation initially by A, B, C, or D. Exploring the action observed in the debriefing following the case. Ignore the behavior and focus on the medical management of the case in debriefing. Reporting the participant to their supervisor for remediation, or stopping the scenario, removing the participant and restarting the scenario. What would be the best way to handle this? Correct. A. Tell me why that would be the best place. Why that would be the best choice. Why don't we just ignore it? Why don't we just report them? And we should just go on and stop it. So tell me why those choices are not correct. And A
Well,
would be the best choice.
the inappropriate behavior of I guess the raised voice tone or whatever. Something you do not want to ignore, especially if you're trying to do team, building
That's
teamwork.
right.
So that would kind of hamper the whole idea of working as a team. That's my thing. So
Yeah.
the other thing is I don't think stopping the scenario is a good idea either. So
hmm As long as everybody's safe and they're not throwing things, right?
And debriefing's the time for reflection, right? And understanding the lens that the students are viewing things through. So it's good for both the person who was raising their voice and the person who was being spoken to get a chance to express how that whole situation impacted them.
Yes, and you get to get into the head of the students, the learners, right? I was concerned when you raised your voice, and didn't even call the name of the physician or the practitioner that was in our simulation today. Can you tell me what were you feeling? What was going on? Can you tell me what you were thinking? Help us understand what you were feeling at that time. And it's at that time we're not throwing judgment, right? We're asking the learner to let's get inside that head and let's kind of see what you were thinking, and they start expressing themselves. We're able to learn better, and then we're able to correct that behavior. But guess who will correct the behavior? The students themselves, which keeps that whole environment safe
yeah.
for the learners. I love it. I love it. Ignoring no, reporting no, stopping no, removing no, restarting no, only if it's unsafe. But we do need to explore, and debriefing is the place to do that. Remember, reflective learning, causing them to reflect on their actions. And the rationale is the opportunity to explore their thinking and impact their actions on other team members and offer a what? New way of approaching. We won't do that though. We do very good, effective debriefing. We're going to ask those questions. I was concerned. We're going to ask those questions, and guess what? They're going to come up with the answers. Remember the popcorn, and it'll just start happening. A new way to approach closed loop communication. Now, you can see a case study or you can see an example of that on your exam, and they're wanting to know, what do you need to do? What if they give you an example of a conversation and your choice of answers is, I need to make sure we get an understanding and someone repeats or gives a wrap up of that conversation, because closed loop communication minimize errors, right? A lot of our sentinel events are happening because of what? Communication gaps. So closed loop communication is another key. I would asterisk, put a little highlighter. That's another one we need to make sure when we see it rolled out in a scenario or a question and it's an answer choice, we're able to pick that out. Because you want to always make sure, especially when we're in team and interprofessional scenarios, courses, or simulations. That's very critical when you have more than one different discipline in your simulations. To ignore and not talk about the behavior during the debriefing results in a missed opportunity to discuss IP team communication. Closed loop communication is very key to successful IPE sims. Reporting a participant potentially violates confidentiality and psychological safety. Stopping the sim breaks what? Psychological safety, not only for the learner, that one that was with the behavior, but for everybody. You've just lost the chance to actually have a nice simulation and learning opportunity for everybody in the room. So think about it when you're stopping your sims. Good, 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 good. 3, the simulation educator working in a hospital-based simulation center is leading an interprofessional team designing a simulation-based education course to improve patient outcomes. The goal of simulation. To leverage the impact of the educational program, the team wishes to address the most common cause of error in authentic patient care. Which of the following will best serve that objective? A, lack of knowledge. B, inadequate resources. C, lack of communication, and D, lack of leadership. Correct. And we've already talked about it. I kind of tapped on it in that last conversation I just had. Lack of communication. Hence why closed loop communication is important. So your answer is C. Lack of communication in IP, interprofessional teams, is most what? The most common cause of patient care errors. Lack of knowledge, inadequate resources, lack of leadership are contributing factors, but are not the most common cause of patient care errors. Okay? And the goal of simulation is to create, revise, provide what? Ways that we can provide safe patient care. Number 4, the simulation educators collaborate with an interprofessional team to design an interprofessional education course. Which of the following modalities would engage learners from all professions? A, B, C, or D? Virtual environment, learners asynchronously read case studies and answer questions. In an IP team, seeing standardized patients and co-developing a plan of care followed by feedback and debriefing. C, seeing a standardized patient by a group of professionals from one discipline and then writing domain-specific care notes. Or D, in a virtual reality learning environment where they take turns being the team leader in an advanced life support case. Yes, B is our answer. Someone share with me. Why is B your correct answer? Or why is A, C, and D not your correct answer? We might need to try to flip it a little bit because I got to make sure you're looking at it from both ways. Why is A, C, and D not the correct answer?
This question's asking about engagement. A has no engagement.
Okay.
D, they're taking turns, so that's really not engaging the team. C, they're each doing their own thing, so that's not team engagement in my opinion. That's why I wouldn't pick A, C, or D.
Gotcha. And look at C again. There's only one discipline.
Yeah, one discipline. Yeah.
Only one discipline. And from that one discipline, they're going to go and write all the debate. You know that's not IP. Come on. You remember I told you need to have someone from every discipline around the table. If you don't, that's not IPE. That's not a effective IPE sim. And you're not going to get to those goals because you need representatives from each one. They're the experts, right? You're so correct. And it's definitely virtual, asynchronous, case studies, and everything else Kristen said was correct. Okay? Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Taking turns being the team leader. Virtual reality is good for what it is, right? But you got to make sure that you do it correctly. Especially if you're going to do IP sims. Learners are interacting in an IP sim, and learners will with, from, and about one another with a live patient. SPs are your number one choice. If you had to choose a modality, of course, but you still want to do it the right way. Asynchronous learning does not engage the IP team. Seeing a patient with only one profession does not engage. And virtual reality can use an IP team, but in person increases what? Those real-time actions. Number 5, the simulation educator is preparing to be in the role of a debriefer in an interprofessional team simulation. In preparing for their role and reviewing the Institute of Medicine report to err as human, which of the following should they anticipate, including any pre-briefing to describe the primary reason the team is practicing? A, decrease attrition from their respective professions. B, to increase efficiency of patient care. C, to increase communication across professions. D, to orient new team members. Correct. C, tell me why the other three are not correct. Why is A, B, and D not correct?
I mean, what we've talked about is one of the root cause to med errors is a lack of communication. And if you're working in a team or a code or a team or what have you, lack of communication can harm a patient also. So that's my rationale. I didn't think much of the other 3. I just saw
Yes,
communications.
on communication. Yes, 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 yes. And to err human, that's exactly what that um article was about. Yes, that report was about. Exactly. Exactly. The role of the briefing in IPCM, IP team simulations is it really focuses on communication. Team steps, make sure you know team steps is outlined in this book. And there are some also in your defining excellence in simulation, Max Worthy Epps book. There's some additional read in those books as well. Make sure you look at the cross map that I did for you and tap into some of those extra reads in that book as well, just to kind of drive home a little extra layer for team steps, because we're going to see something about that. Collaborative, IP SIMs, and how we're rolling those out, best practice and standards. Let's see. We are on number 6. The simulation educators are leading an interprofessional team in a meeting and is explaining the essence of interprofessional education. Which of the following would best describe the essence of interprofessional education? A, cooperation between different healthcare professions. B, meeting accreditation standards and criteria. C, a license and or certification requirement. Or D, to learn from, with, and about other health professions. Correct. D is our choice. A, cooperation between different health professions. That's not the what. That's not the essence of interprofessional education. Meeting accreditation standards? No. Probably for a program, but not for IPE. A license or certification requirement? Not for IPE. That's not our goal. We're not trying to get them certified, nor provide them a license. Half of them already have a license. That's why they're probably in the simulation, unless we're trying to get our undergraduates to go get a license. But your main reason for that IPCM is to do what? Have them interact with each other, from each other, and around other healthcare professionals around the table. That's your goal for your IPCM. Okay? All right? And that's exactly what our rationale is saying in the back here, learning together. And that's whose definition it really is. When you look up IPE, that's exactly what how they define interprofessional education. IPE is not a current license, certification, or accreditation standard, while cooperation is an outcome, right? But it's not the core. The essence is learning together. There is a team approach to patient care. So there's inter professional collaboration. You can be intra or you could be inter. So make sure we understand those differences inside the profession and outside of the profession. We bring them all together. Okay. All right, let's look at number 7. In designing an interprofessional simulation case that will meet the core competencies of roles and responsibilities, which of the following cases would allow learners to meet that objective? Woo, all right. Hey, we got a nice case here. A case where nurses, pharmacists, doctors must form an ad hoc team to quickly provide care for an acutely decompensated patient. B, a case with nurses, doctors who must communicate a complex care plan to patients and their families. C, a case with nurses, doctors who must resolve an IP conflict. Or D, a case with nurse practitioners where they must develop a complex plan for a dying patient. We're looking for roles and responsibility. Which case study represents that? Oh, I love it. Hey, so someone tell me why? Why? Why B, C, and D would not represent roles and responsibilities? What in those case studies make those answers incorrect? We got to be able to explain it backwards. We can tell why it's right, but you got to be able to tease it out and tell why the other ones are wrong too.
So for B, I didn't choose B because it has nurses and doctors, but it's more about communication and a plan of care, not really roles and responsibilities.
Okay, great.
For C, a case with nurses and doctors who must resolve an IP conflict. It doesn't say anything about, it's not a case about what they're doing, what their role is. It's more of just conflict, like how are they going to resolve it? So is that more like communication?
Okay.
Is my reasoning not right or?
You're doing good. Keep
Oh,
going.
I
Keep,
am,
you're
okay.
doing good. You're
And
doing
then,
good.
okay, and then
I'm
a case with
sorry.
nurses and nurse practitioners where they must develop a complex care plan for a dying patient. Again, that's just roles and responsibility. Like, it doesn't have anything with responsibilities or roles. It's more of just creating a plan of care.
Yeah. So it
Okay.
has all,
And I feel like nurse and nurse practitioner are similar. It's not
yes. Yeah.
different roles like doctors or social work or anyone else really involved.
Okay. All right. And then when we look at A, what are all the keys in A that highlights and checks all the boxes, at least for roles and responsibilities when you look at A? Very good job, Irene
There's like
and
nurses,
Leroy.
pharmacists, doctors. They're like in different disciplines.
And they're actually coming together to form a team, meaning they're bringing all their expertise there, right? And they're all going to operate in their role and they're forming this team that's going to do what? Provide care. But all of them are functioning in their role and in their, you could actually see, the defined definition of that. Great job. Carrying out prospective roles, responsibilities in action. You can see that in A. And I love it. Okay. This will allow an IP team to practice the core competencies of role and responsibilities. Communicating with patient families and conflict resolution would meet the core competency of, just like Irene said, communication. But we're looking for roles, specific roles, and those responsibilities attached to those roles, providing them the opportunity to play that out in a simulated environment. And A gives you all of that, all the components. I love it. Yes. Woo-hoo. Yes, 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 yes. Communicate with patients. We already said it. Nurses practicing with nurse practitioners is remember I said inter, that's intra professional. Okay. All right, moving on. 8, the simulation educator is observing an interprofessional education case and notices what? The team is asking for input from the patient and family for their wishes of end-of-life care, as well as what? Checking with all professions in the room before developing a plan. This demonstrates the team meeting meeting which of the following core competencies: A, values and ethics; B, roles and responsibilities; C, communication; D, teamwork. A. I think okay. Did everybody uh-oh. I'm sorry. I started seeing some things here.
I put B.
Okay. Let's talk about this one. That's okay. All right. So the answer is, let's look at it.
A.
So huh? It's
Answer
A,
A.
because you got
Yeah.
you got to look at the different components, almost just like what Irene did with the other answer, right? So we're now thinking about values and ethics. What concerns you? We're talking about end of life, and we're asking them what concerns them, their values and ethics. The team is asking for input from who? The patient and the family member.
So I thought
Respecting
that's
the
why it
values and
was.
cultures of others. I'm sorry.
I kind of read it wrong, and anyway, I got the wrong answer. So
What were you saying, Irene? I'm sorry. Thank
That's
you.
okay. I was debating between A and C, but because they were checking in with all professions in the room to develop a plan, I thought it was like communicating with everyone, like the family plus other healthcare providers and professions.
Okay, but it leads with who are they asking? They're asking the family, what do you value? What do you think of what are your what are your thoughts towards death and dying? And they're
Wishes.
getting that input from them and they're going to use that to do what? Create their plan.
Okay.
And it's their
Okay.
culture too, because they're saying, so when you think about values and ethics, we think about cultural consideration, right? What's important to you, what matters most to them. We take all of that in consideration, then we take that and we move our plans forward. Is that good? So that's what differentiates your A from your C. Now, communication would be they're in there talking amongst themselves, you know, This is what death and dying is, this process. And then the nutrition may come and say, yeah, from this perspective, you may notice that they're not eating anymore. And they're just in there communicating around the table, talking about death and dying. But when we start transitioning to asking them, how do you feel about death and dying? What are your values? What are your culture do? You know, how how do you feel about hospice, you know, and those type things, end of life. Then you're getting into the values and the ethics of another. Is it ethically right to do? How do you feel? Do you think you should take morphine? You know, those type things. You're getting their perspective. Am I bringing it home for you? But communication is
Yes.
is sharing those thoughts versus getting that value and ethical information from them. What is ethical?
Okay,
Good
makes
job.
sense.
Good. Demonstrates values and ethics. The rationale respects the unique culture, value, roles, responsibilities, and expertise of other health professions and the impact these factors have on healthcare health outcomes. Requesting patient and family preference is not highlighted under roles and responsibilities, communication, or teamwork, although they are the components of them, but it specifically identifies and is identified under your values and ethics. Okay. Number 9, simulation educators designing professional education curriculum between nursing students and med students on different academic calendars and want to proactively address what? The most common barrier, and which is A, lack of awareness of IP among faculty, B, scheduling different professions, C, misalignment with the school's mission and values, D, conflict among interprofessional faculty. And you are correct. And that is the number one thing. And I'm telling you, might really see that. You might, because you may see a case study saying you're trying to pull a IP simulation together. You getting times from this person. When you go to pharmacy, their students can't come. When you go to nursing, they're having in clinical. When you go to dietetics, they're somewhere else in the lab, and you can never get all of them together. And that is the truth. That's just how it works. So scheduling is your most common situation. It's the most common barrier. Hopefully there's no lack of awareness in any health profession. The mission and values of healthcare professionals are usually aligned and deal with caring for people in population. Conflicts must be overcome and cannot be a justifiable barrier, but time scheduling is that reason. It is the most common barrier. And number 10, the simulation educator is evaluating outcomes for interprofessional education program. Which of the following would be the best? Again, the best approach. A, do not use any outcome measures as this is a new program. B, review the literature and use a previously designed tool that is appropriate. C, realizing their center is different, create a new tool without reviewing the literature. D, use uniprofessional outcome tools and evaluate each profession separately. And you are correct. Tell me, as we wrap up this last one and take our last break of the night, why is A and C and D not correct? B is your correct answer. Why are the other 3 choices not correct?
For me, it came down to professionalism, honestly.
Okay.
Not using any outcome measures, that's not bettering the program at all.
Okay.
Realizing that the center's different and creating a new tool, again, without reviewing the literature, that's not making the program better. That's, staying the same. And using uniprofessional outcome tools and evaluate each profession separately, that's not intraprofessional. So for me, it was easy to be B.
Okay. All right. And when you
Reviewing the literature too.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Reviewing the literature also.
Yeah.
They're looking for evidence. They're looking for evidence.
Right. When you see the word evaluation, when we think about evaluation, your tools always in evaluation need to be what? Reliable
And
and
valid.
valid. So when you see the word evaluation, and that's what I see in 10, the simulation educator is what? Evaluating. That word evaluating sticks out. Your outcomes, measures. It doesn't matter whether it's the IP sim, med-surg sim, maternity sim, you still need to what? Make sure that tool is being used is what? Evidence-based and reliable and valid. Okay, so when you see evaluations and you have to do your tools, make sure your choices are centered around it needs to be valid and it needs to be reliable, right? And if it is a summative tool or OSCE, that person, that's the assessor, one of our terms tonight, they need to be what? Prepared. They need to be trained. We're not switching up someone that's a novice and don't even know how to do the tool. No, when we're talking evaluation, those tools, your key buzzwords are what? Valid and reliable. And when it comes to asking questions about the assessors, they need to be what? Trained and at least aware of the what? Content that's being evaluated. No substitutes, especially when you're coming down to your OSCEs, your summative evaluations. Your formative evaluations, you are forming learning along the journey of that student. So those are the type where you provide that feedback along the way. They're putting in a Foley, oh, you crossed over your field. They go back in the practice lab, they make sure they don't cross over the field. You're getting them ready for that final evaluation, right? So those are your key buzzwords. That question is talking about IP, but the key what they're looking at is the evaluation. How are you selecting an evaluation for this IPE sim? And that doesn't matter, no matter what type of sim. All of your evaluation tools need to be what? Two buzzwords: valid and reliable. Okay, we good? I love it. So I see now we're going to go backwards. You guys can tell, we can tell each other why we got it right, but we need to start being able to tell each other why the other three answers are incorrect, because it really causes you. If you can tell me why the other three are incorrect, you'll always be able to do that. Am I making sense? So when you get to that chassis, you should be able to go through and say, that was wrong. That was wrong. But this one right here is correct. Because they're not looking at your knowledge. They want to see if you can what? Implement, right? Apply. So that means I know what I'm talking about, and you do too. All right. Literature is important, and that's why you go to the literature. This approach uses a tool with prior reliability and validity. Prior. We ain't trying to do nothing new. And if you are, you need to get the literature to support it, and you at least need to pilot it for some time, or at least find literature that has what? Piloted and has valid data that supports the validity of that tool. Okay? You get your set M and you use that for your simulation evaluation, it's already tested and tried. Right? It has the evidence, it has the articles that tell you to the degree that that set M simulation tool is valid and reliable. Okay? We good? All right. Create a new tool without the appropriate rigor. Risk process can provide inaccurate data. Not collecting the data is a missed opportunity to evaluate the impact of the program, and using a uni-professional tool will result in data that what? Do not measure IPE outcomes. So don't get tripped up because they say IPE, because whether it's a maternity IPE, whatever, your tools have to be those two buzzwords: valid and reliable, and supported by evidence base. All right, I'm gonna stop because see, I'll end up talking more. So y'all got me on a roll. The popcorn is popping. So let's go ahead right now, put a pause, and let's take our 10-minute break, and we'll come back and wrap it up, okay? With chapter 7. Okay, I hope everybody had a nice little stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down. Yes, yes, yes. So we're getting ready to get into ethics, ethical decisions. And this next chapter, chapter 7, we'll be looking at questions that are around ethical, legal, regulatory implications in healthcare. We've kind of touched on it a little bit in the questions that we just were looking at, because no matter what you study, I think ethics is always going to be involved, right? So let's start rolling on page 95. The first question, a student is participating in a summative simulation activity and has failed in an area that has been identified as a critical element. We think about summative, we think about those evaluations or activities that's looking at the end after the students have already gone through all the didactic, the training that they need to take that in, pass, fail, grade type of evaluation process versus your formative, your forming learning along the way, and has failed in an area that has been identified as a critical element. Is clearly stated in the testing standards that if a student misses a critical element, the student must fail the exam. Uh, the evaluator is rationalizing that the student's omission is an oversight and therefore the student should not be failed. What is the best action for the simulation leader or manager? So now you're in the leader manager role. A, leave it alone as the faculty are the experts. B, call an administrator to lead a discussion about the situation. C, inform the evaluator their behavior will be reported to the administration. Or D, discuss the situation, focusing on the potential ramifications if the standards are ignored. Okay, D, tell me why A, B, and C are incorrect. You're right. D is the answer.
I think
Talking
this is like a
ethics.
high stakes report, so you don't want to just leave it alone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think the evaluator needs to be reported. Maybe it was just something they missed and it could be resolved with a discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And then for B, I mean, the administrator won't know anything about what happens. I don't know why they would have to lead the discussion about the situation.
Exactly. And D is the appropriate one because you're doing what? What you just said. You're doing what in D? Bringing them
Discussing
around
this,
this exactly.
discussing the
Discussing the
situation.
situation, focusing on it because guess what? We're wanting to change behavior, right? And that's behavior of the student or the faculty, right? So that if we don't change it and address it the right way, guess what? We're gonna have faculty doing things wrong. And then now you have a whole cohort of students that are going out displaying those same behaviors. So it works both ways.
That's kind of,
Crystal?
I took this question was discussing the situation and the ramifications. I saw that one as the choice simply because of this, that's a safety issue.
Yes.
If we're allowing this to happen, these students are not going to be practicing safely in the field.
Yes, and that's the whole one of the main goals of simulation, right? Is we're able to teach them in an environment that's safe so that we can promote safe practices out in our clinical sites or wherever they're going to practice. Patient safety is number one. So good. Thank you, both of you. Great, 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 great. Our rationale right quick. Discussing the simulation is the best determinant in order to what? Understand if the learner and the evaluator know the what? So the severity of leaving out critical elements. Involving administrators is the first step. Reciting the following. The policy per se without an investigation does not do what? Include due process. Ignoring it may produce the student learning outcomes, may not produce the student outcomes that are intended. Great, great, great. Number 2, participating in ethical simulation experience is important for healthcare professionals because they assist students to do what? They assist them in A, developing more reasoning, recognizing professional values, B, learning to work out health outcomes, healthcare problems in a neutral way. 6, focusing on the negative aspects of the healthcare profession, or D, rationalizing behavior when making moral decisions. Yes, yes. A. Somebody tell me why B, C, and D are not correct. You're correct. A is the answer. But tell me what helped you. You know why B, C, and D are incorrect. What's not correct about those three choices?
I'm not sure how you would work out problems in a neutral way.
Okay.
To me, a neutral way is you're not taking a side, I guess, the right or the wrong, I guess.
Mhm.
So I don't know what that neutral way means. So
So
that
you
I
think
eliminated
okay,
that.
okay.
Um, I think focusing on the negative aspects is not beneficial for simulation. All you're going to do is look at all the negative things, and then if you have I guess D would be, to me, I'm just reading that, is you're trying to rationalize good, or I mean, not good. You're rationalizing bad moral judgment, I guess. So that's kind of how I read that. So basically, A to me was the better answer of all those. I'm
And
not looking at the I'm not looking at. I don't want to flip the page yet.
okay, because this question is asking pretty much is asking what is the benefits of students participating in ethical simulation experiences?
Right.
That's really, you know what I'm saying? So you're saying your B, C, and D don't really, it's not really a total benefit of them participating in the simulations because they're really not those things that can be achieved through there, or you really, but B, A is saying that this is the reason why we do ethical simulations and why the students should be participating. Is that what you're saying, Leroy?
Well, yeah, if you're doing ethical simulation, you want them to do good things, not
Okay.
the opposite of that. Anyway, that's what I got out of this question,
Okay.
or the answer. So.
Okay. When you look at A, that's the one, that's the true reason, right? We put them into
Yes.
ethical simulation so that they can develop more reason. They have to develop that, right? And
Yeah.
recognizing professional values themselves and everybody else. When you go back to that chapter we just was in team values and ethics. And look, if you do A, all those other things, B, C, and D, they'll learn how to do those things if you do A. A kind of encompasses it all. If you choose one, it ain't always going to be negative aspects. We got to look at the positive too to make a nice balanced decision.
Right.
Okay. Neutrality comes when then we're able to develop moral reasoning, and they are able to develop that. Because in some situations, you may have to be neutral, especially as the leader, so that you can really hear what's going on and be able to pull out of there the real root cause of some things. But if you do A, the real reason why, then those are the things that line up. So let's see. It's important to develop more reasoning, professional values. It does not include rationalization, but does include what? Reflection. And that's the power of debriefing, because you want them to reflect on that behavior, not rationalize it, but you want to be able to reflect. It is not always possible to work things out in a neutral manner, and focusing on the negative may not what? And I think that's what Leroy was saying as well. It won't build confidence, always focus on negative, negative, negative. So A is your correct answer. 3, the simulation educator is completing a summative testing session. Okay. With students in an education program, the testing session is about to start, but one of the faculty evaluators is not present due to traffic issues. The faculty member has phoned in and will be at least 60 minutes late. The simulation center leader, manager is best decision is to. So your best decision as that manager is to do what? A, B, C, or D? Okay. All right. So let's talk about this one. So we have a summative simulation. So this is a simulation where it's pass fail, right? Or they get a grade. This is at the end. So this is either OSCE or they're having the final presentation or the final simulation or checkout. This is not formative where we can help them along the way. So we're doing a summative evaluation. And what are some of the things we know about summative? You need someone that is a what? Content expert and been trained on the tool, right? And our tools need to be what? Reliable and valid. Okay. All right, we got it. So when we look at our choices, A, have the students wait until the faculty evaluator arrive. That can also increase anxiety. If the students fail, then they're going to come back and say they failed because they had to wait. So we'll put that one. B, step in as a substitute evaluator until the faculty member arrive. Do we have that content expertise for the content that's being simulated? It doesn't say that in this, and we can't read anything into the answers. So you wouldn't want to step in if you're not that, if it doesn't say, now if it say content expert step in, that would make that correct. Okay, call in a substitute faculty evaluator with similar content expertise and train it in testing. That has some nice cues and that has some nice things in there. Out of all my choices, I'll come back to it, okay? D, inform the students that they will have to return and be tested on a different day. That just will not be, the students can go away. They can get angry and then have them go away and come back. There's a lot of different factors that kind of can wrap back around to us. If that's what we have to do, because we have to do it, we will do it. But your best choice in this answer is C, call in a substitute. And what makes that substitute qualified to fill in for this faculty?
Expert.
Go
ahead. Go ahead, Irene.
Oh, okay. Is it because they have similar content expertise?
Exactly. And they also have what?
Training,
Training in what?
testing.
Exactly. This is a summative. So when you're doing your summative, that's pass fail, high stakes. Right? So you need that faculty member to be trained. They need to be content experts. The tool needs to be valid and reliable. So if we have a case study like this on our CHSE, we need to make sure that all those components are there. You may have several choices. Yeah, you can send the students home if you don't have nobody that's what? Content expert, and you don't have a tool that's not reliable. But if you have a tool that's reliable, but you don't have no one trained in doing the tool, nor are they familiar with the content or have similar expertise, you're going to end up evaluating and failing some students that probably shouldn't fail because that evaluator or that assessor has no clue as to the content that's being tested. Okay?
So then, would I be reading too much into it if I'm thinking that if we call in a substitute, what if they're still late? Like, what if they're not on time?
But
Like,
your
how would we know?
Say, yep, you're reading too much in now. Cause look, your
okay.
substitute has to be, you can't put nothing in that's not there in that answer. Cause it's gonna trip you up. You have to read it. It says step in as a substitute evaluator, but it didn't say in your case study that you were expert either. And not all simulation educators have expertise in the simulations that they're doing. Hence why you always want content experts to review your simulations before you move forward with them to ensure that the content in your simulation is what? Accurate according to the profession. So just because you run a simulation, you have a lot of simulation facilitators that may not, in some sense, you have some that are sim ops that are not nurses, but their content has been reviewed by experts. Now, the best thing would be was to have a content, if you could get your clinical instructors in the room with you, but not all programs are fortunate to have CIs come along in your simulations. So when you look at this, don't read too much into it, okay? A says have the students wait until the faculty evaluator arrives. I could do that if they're going to come. That's plausible. But we're going to keep reading. B, step in as a substitute. Evaluate until the faculty arrives. It doesn't say that substitute has any content expertise. nor do they have any expertise in testing. I'm just reading it for what it says. But when I look at C, okay, it's going to pique my interest. Why? Because the substitute faculty evaluator has similar content expertise. And number two, they also have some experience in testing. So that one out of all my choices really check more boxes. And it's the most, the answer that is correct and accurate. When you go to D, inform the students that they will have to return and be tested on a different day. I probably would say if the faculty didn't arrive, that would be my next choice. But in this choice of questions, your C hits every box, or at least check those boxes when you look at the qualifications of an assessor completing a summative evaluation.
Irene,
I
I
got
kind
mad
of think
'cause-
of, oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Chris.
I was just
Kristen.
going to say, I kind of think of about it as utopia world, right? Because that's what we're in testing world. So
That's right.
this answer would be if they're calling it a substitute, they're like right around the corner. Utopia world. You've got a
Yeah.
content expert and a testing expert right there. Hey.
Yep. And see, and that's the thing. We can't don't put nothing in the don't put nothing in the choices, because when you get to C, you see those things that we need for an evaluator.
Yeah.
You don't see those things in the other choices. Am I
I
making
got mad at I got mad at C because what the heck, this faculty members sitting in their office, we're working, you know.
okay? Okay. All right.
I was kidding.
I tell you, the evaluator should be competent content expert. Respecting students' time is important, and being free to manage the simulation center as a leader is also important. Waiting does not respect students' time and may increase their anxiety. Stepping in to decrease the leader's availability to deal with other issues should they arise. Rescheduling should be a last resort, because usually there's a lack of time and space. Okay. Irene, was that helpful?
Yes, it was. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay. Number 4, a student is participating in a simulation scenario and must give a medication. The correct calculation to give the patient should have been 0.5 mLs of the medication, but the student drew up and administered 0.6 mLs. During debriefing, the student's response is that it was not a big deal, but it was only 0.1 more milliliters than the desired dose of the medication. The facilitator's best, here we go, our best response should be which of the following: A, B, C, or D? Yes, B. Someone tell me real quick why A, C, and D are not correct. B is the correct choice.
Med errors you need to take serious regardless.
That's right. I love it. You summed it up very well. Very well. A microethical situation, but guess what? Any med error, anything that's breaching safety needs to be addressed. I love it. And B does that. Any medication error without is ethically important. Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. And the rationale in your book: reinforcement of ethical issues that accompanies a mistake is important for students to understand. The error should not be addressed in an embarrassing way, but also cannot be minimized. Using the 10 rights of medication administration should be done for every dose administered. And there again, we got to be safe, everybody. We can't just go in there and tear that student apart. Those are going to be questions that we'll have to. The student responds like that, then we have to come back with another type of Socratic question or pose another type of scenario and have that student try to come into that space of seeing what we're trying to say. And then some of the other peers in there other students in the room may chime in as well, but you can't overlook it. Number 5, a group of educators is creating an end-of-life scenario. In addition to creating the details about the patient and the family, what other considerations related to designing the sim are critical to make the scenario appropriate for the participants? A, standards of care and culture of the region should be considered. B, skipping the pre-brief and as to not disclose the simulation objectives. C, the scenario must be based on a real life situation. D, the scenario must include all healthcare disciplines. Yes, A is our choice. Why B, C, and D are not correct?
I think D, I didn't pick D because they have the word all.
Okay, that's a good way to look at it.
All healthcare, all hair
hmm
healthcare. Okay.
And you know the scenario don't have to include all healthcare disciplines, right?
Correct.
It doesn't have to. We didn't say it was an IPSIM. Right?
You should
It doesn't
never
have
skip
to.
the pre-brief.
The other words must.
Exactly. Never
Put C.
skip the pre-brief, so that makes B wrong.
Yeah,
And
and then
C,
must is the word that sticks out.
exactly. It don't have to be a real life situation. I love it. Yes, that's how we're gonna tear these questions apart the next 4 weeks. I love it. That's exactly right. Which leaves standards of care and culture of the region should be considered. Because if you're doing an end of life scenario, you need all of that in there so that you can really bring that simulation to life. And you know, if you do that, you're gonna have a simulation that's real, realism, right? Integrating those concepts. I love it. Number 5 says standards of care and culture are always important in depicting emotional charged situations. Pre-briefing, as Kristen said, should never, ever, never be skipped. And basing scenarios on real life is good as it includes other disciplines, but not what necessary. So thank you, Leroy, for picking that word must. Number 6, a student in the hall discussing the simulation scenario with their peers. They state that the standardized patient had HIV and was being told for the first time about the disease. The healthcare simulation educator overhears the conversation. The appropriate action by the healthcare simulation educator would be A, ask the students to take the conversation to a private room. B, call the students who was discussing the patient later and explain that the conversation breached confidentiality. C, stop the conversation and explain. Or D, explain to the students that if there were a real patient, this would be a HIPAA violation. Correct. Our answer choice is C. A, B, and D are incorrect because
It allows the conversation to continue.
exactly. Allows the conversation to continue. That is behavior. That's another safety breach on another level. We allow that behavior to continue. And you remember, you got to do it in a psychological safe way so that the students will be able to hear what you're telling them. If you don't do it in a psychological safe way, they're going to shut down and they won't even hear the right way to do it. Okay. Right. So taking them, stopping the conversation and explaining that it breaches confidentiality, bring it back home. Bring it back home. Give them a real right there and there, right then and there. The conversation should not be allowed to continue. Taking it to a private room continues the HIPAA violation. Calling the student at a later point does not stop the violation, and the student should always be aware of HIPAA is so that the faculty should not have to re-explain the concept. Number 7, the healthcare student states that they had a bad day and don't want to participate in SIM. Oh, go figure. They don't want to participate in simulation because they're having a bad day. The healthcare simulation educator should A, remind the student of professional expectations, excuse the student for the day and reschedule, have the student observe the scenario from the window, tell the student they can make it with a case study. Krista, I see you smiling. That's kind of funny, right? You having a bad day and you don't want to do sim. Okay. I think she's frozen now. The
Everybody's
answer
always
is
having a
A.
bad day.
Remind that student of professional conduct, and that's our ethics as a nurse. Right. Yes, but we can't stop, right? Our patients need us. So we're trying to shape those behavior in our learners. Right. Yeah. So
I
you
can
don't
only
want to tell them to do a
imagine
case
nurse.
study.
I can only
Mhm.
imagine a nurse being like, I'm having a bad day. I can't take care of my patients.
And your nurse manager gonna say, adios, amigas, adios. You're gonna be bye. And that patient's waiting for you to be cared for. No. So if the students are displaying that behavior, it's not professional. And we have to address that.
That's true with any employment. You don't
Yeah,
show up and say, I don't feel like working today out of
exactly. And that's the power of simulation. We're shaping our learners to have those professional values, right? And expectations. Number 8, the healthcare simulation educator wants to determine the IV administration competency level of a junior healthcare student. Then develop a module for remediation of identified weakness. This is an example of what? Is it summative evaluation, ongoing assessment, competency-based simulation, or formative evaluation? I love it. The answer choice is D, formative. Summative is wrong because what? What are they doing in the question?
remediating. It's
They're
not a final. It's not a final
That's
test.
right. Yes.
Oh,
Yes, it's not a final. Yes, they're watching the student and then they're doing remediation. And then they're going to do a module. So they're forming learning along the way. So it is formative assessment or formative evaluation. Remediation is your key right there. I love it. Number 9, graduates from a healthcare educational program see an advertisement for the educational organization on a billboard with their pictures in it from a simulation experience. So students did not give consent for the pictures to be used. And external advertisement. This is an example of what? Fair trade, extending use of education material, lack of consent, or academic freedom. Correct. C, lack of consent. Okay, they didn't give consent for that. And you know we have to get student permission. You should have video release consents in your simulations and usually do that with your very first sim and you keep them on your records. That is ethically right. Students can sue you if you don't do it the right way. So we have to get those things, those consents. Number 10, an example of a micro-ethical situation embedded in a simulation scenario would be A, B, C, or D. Administering the wrong med to the patient, causing an allergic reaction, forgetting to wash your hands before assisting a patient to the bathroom, forgetting to identify the patient by 2 means and just asking their name, or leaving a Foley in all night that was supposed to come out the evening before. Which one is an example of a micro? And you are correct, B. They see that as small, but that is safety all over the place. We're going to transfer those germs to a patient that's neutropenic, and that patient will decline, and we may lose that patient. You are correct. Family, we've done it. We're done it. You guys did amazing tonight. I got a nice thing to show you. Check this out. I got 1 minute. I got to show you my picture. This is how I feel. Thank you. You did so good tonight. Woo! Awesome, awesome, awesome. Do I have any questions? We have 1 minute. Let me show you what we're doing next week. Chapters 8 through 13, healthcare and simulation knowledge and principles. Go ahead and do your exams, your little quizzes at the end. We'll come in next Wednesday. We'll do our check-in. We'll do our 10 terms from our dictionary, and then we'll get started right into our questions. Do we have any questions?
Did you
Any
have that
concern?
link, the link for
yeah.
the files? When I go to the Google Drive, I don't see anything but the PowerPoint in there.
Okay. I will. Seem like someone had to do something different last week. Who was that? If you can hold on, I'll let whoever needs to go over the links. If you'll stay on and I'll let everybody else go, we'll go over it together and find your links. Okay. Is that all right?
Okay. Yes. Yes.
Oh, I just
You
had a
found the links,
question.
right? You were okay. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. So if we had a question in between, like in the middle of the week, what's the best way to contact you directly?
You
Is
can
it,
email me. You can
oh,
email
what's your email address?
Dr. Scott. Let me put it in the chat here.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't know where to find your contact info.
Yeah, I sent everybody a welcome email. I thought I sent it out to your emails. Did you not get that welcome email from me?
Let's see. Oh, is it drscottconsultants@gmail.com?
Yep, that's me.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Sorry,
That's me.
I will save that.
It's okay.
Okay.
Mhm. Okay. Because when you go on to Dr. Stella's Educate site, you should be able to log into your portal with your email. And once you log into the portal, on the side of the left-hand side, you'll see the sessions. And there is a folder that I thought that said Google. When you go to week 1, your documents and resources should be housed in week 1. Week
Yeah.
2, that's where your resources are housed in week 2. So each week you'll see those folders. Now, the folders don't open up ahead of time, but they open up, for our week. Are you still not seeing it, Christian?
I have the week, but all that's in there is the PowerPoint.
You might want to
Oh.
go back to the week before to week 1.
I did see the week 1 stuff.
Well, in week 2, we don't have anything. I didn't have any extra thing. Only thing was in week 2 was a PowerPoint.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense then.
Yep. So you're good. But what I'm going to do though, the resource I have tonight that I showed you, Benners, I'm going to put that in week 2.
Oh, okay.
And I have a couple of more that I'm going to work on for you. I'm going to do a Cobb's Learning. I think I have one in Cobb's. I have a Cobb's Learning. I'm going to work on it for you as well and kind of link some simulations to that. And I'm going to do something with VARCs as well with some simulation. And I think I might do a little bit of work with some team steps because I want you to make sure you know what it looks like with team steps being rolled out in a simulation experience. So I'm going to work on those and put them in week 2 as well. Okay, but right now, only thing you have is a PowerPoint.
Where did you say the dictionary terms were?
It is in week 1,
I saw it in week 1.
all the way to the end. I think if you go all the way to the bottom of the list, I think
It's
the
in
sample.
the iNASCL best practice folder
Oh,
at the
Thank
very
you, Irene.
bottom.
got it.
The last one. Yeah, got it. Okay.
Okay, and you to hit those terms that you're not quite familiar with, and even the ones you know. But I would look at terms you're not familiar with, especially terms we're hearing a lot in practice. Because I just don't want you to get on an exam and see something and don't know what the question is talking about. But if you at least know the term, it's going to help you.
Mhm.
Okay. So sorry, I have some questions. So the questions that we have at the end of each chapter, are those similar to what the questions will be like on the CHSE, or are these more of like just chapter questions?
No, I
Or-
did book. I did version 1. This is like 3rd edition, and that's how I prep for my CHSE exam. And the thing about it is they have a lot of case studies, or they have scenarios, or they'll have they may have like similar like what we were doing tonight, like with a case, and then you'll have to choose your answer. So yeah, I think they're very closely related. They also on SSH website, the exam I was telling you about, that one kind of helps familiarize you with the platform itself and how to use their platform, but they have a certain style as well. So I feel very comfortable with the questions that we're seeing. Some of them may seem very basic. That's why I'm telling you, we got to be able to say why the answer is incorrect. Mm-hmm. So I hope that answered your question. I've had some really good feedback in some sense regarding your not memorizing or wanting to have a knowledge base. You really got to be able to take it and do what we're doing. Why is that answer incorrect? And being able to overlay those into case studies. And as you look into your resources that are coming up, I did a lot of that in some of our upcoming folders. I didn't just put it in there as the content, but I put it in a simulation, tried to give you some examples so you can see it outplayed in practice. And that's going to be very helpful as well.
Okay.
Because if you you testing questions like we tell our students, you test questions, it's good because the more you do the questions, you should be able to not only just memorize the answer, but be able to tell why it's wrong or why it's right. Because when you get to that CHSE exam, no matter what, if you know why it's wrong, you're going to always get the right answer. But if we memorize it and it don't look like what I studied, that's when we get in trouble. And that's what happened with our learners. They'll go and memorize your notes or your PowerPoints, but when they get on that test and you put it in a case study or they have to move and match, oh, they get thrown off because they don't know the why. And that's why I'm flipping it on you. I want you to be able to tell me why A, B, and C are incorrect. Because if you can do that and really tell us that in this setting, you're going to be fine no matter what. I am confident of that. But that's a very good question. And there are some engines out there where you can get some on your phone. They have some test questions that you can do rapid questions with the CHSE exam. It was one that you can also put on your phone and do those type things. But again, rapid questions are good. They're good for what they can be. You can rapid question all day for memorization, but if you don't know the rationale, you're going to be in trouble. Am I making sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I need your
Was it a
help.
good night for you? Was it things coming together? Do you see things coming together a little bit more? This is just
Mhm.
week 2. I see some good things happening. I'm on this
Yeah.
side looking at you guys, and I see some good things from last week to this week. I really do. And Kristen, you rolled right on up in here, young lady. Woo woo. Y'all have a good night. If you have to leave, I'm still on if you want to stay.
Yeah, I need your help. So,
Okay.
I
Bye-bye.
can't get into the, we did this last week. I can't get into the folders.
Okay. Well, how about can you share your screen?
Yeah.